Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Celeste Wong. I am one of the features programmers for San Francisco Doc Fest. Really honored to be here today in conversation with the incredible director and producer of The Road to Sydney, Benito Bautista. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome, and thank you for having me. Thank
Of
you.
course. This film has such of course, a Bay Area heart in it. Um, so it's really meaningful for us to be bringing it to the Bay Area for the first time. Really honored to have that. Can you take us back to sort of how this started for you, your journey with meeting Sydney, and we see a little bit of it in the film, of course, but if you could give us a little more context of how this film kind of came together when you realized, like, oh, we have a documentary here.
Yes. So, I think as storytellers, as filmmakers, artists, we sometimes look for stories that we can tell in visual medium, in cinema, in different formats, in either documentary or narrative. And so sometimes we are also fortunate enough to have the story find us. And this is the case of The Road to Sydney. If you remember the first scene when the movie opened up, it was a phone, what do you call that? Yeah, it's a phone video recording, right? That was the first introduction of Jay at the time. You know, Emma and I, we had no idea who Jay was, but we were fortunate enough to be working with executive producers that we have worked in the past, um, always looking for stories that they feel should be part of the a documentary film or a narrative film. And so they called us up, Miss Sonia Delen, our executive producer, together with Wendy Pascual and Radhika Lalang. They called us up really late at night at 11:30, and they said, and when they call, we pick up. Because it's either it's just storytelling late at night, or there's something new to learn from them, right? And so they called us up and said, Benito, are you guys awake? Yes, we're still working. Um, I want to bring to your attention our artistic director, which is Jay Loyola, which they've worked for a number of years, which they love, and said, Jay is about to transition. And he at the time was telling us that, uh, uh, you know, she wanted sort of this to be something that she can learn from at the same time, you know? And so Miss Sonia Delenn said, do you think that it's okay that this can be a film? And I said, I really don't know. I really don't know. We haven't met Jay Loyola. Uh, we don't know the authenticity of her character, of her goal, personal goal, and her stories. We have no idea. So we couldn't say yes at the time. So I said, if it's possible, if you can send me something. And she said, yes, I'll send you a video. That was the video. That was the video that started our minds and our hearts to to really figure out if this is something we wanted to tell. And so immediately I told Miss Sonia, we are going to fly to San Francisco from San Diego and would love to meet Jay Loyola. And we met with Jay Loyola, and it was not so difficult or challenging to even um, be drawn to her character or her authenticity and her grace. It was just so easy. And so immediately after our meeting, I told Miss Sonia and yeah, our executive producers, yes, we would love to make this into a film. We had no idea where we're going. You know, this is the beginning of sort of an agreement, if you can say, an agreement between us and Jay. And we had no idea where we're going. But at the same time, I had to ask um, Jay at the time if it was okay if we make a film out of this, you know, her story. And she said yes. She paused for a moment, and we totally understand if she said no. We would totally understand, respect her privacy. But she finally said yes. I would love hopefully my story to be a sort of a source or a catalyst for discussion and change. And so that was really, yeah, sort of a burning light for us. And so yeah, and that started our relationship. That started the writing and the discussion and the dialogue, and yeah.
Yeah, so you clearly had a really good first meeting and first impression of each other, and um, yeah, it sounds like that went really, kind of as well as it could. But I wonder too, because then you still have to go on this whole journey together, and throughout the film, we see her be so vulnerable and so open with her journey, and I can only imagine how hard it is to be that fresh and vulnerable on camera and with with new people. So can you talk a little bit about like building the trust with her and if you had certain ways of talking through like how the film was gonna come together, if there was anything she was uncomfortable with, like were there challenges in terms of just having that trust along the way?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, fortunately for Emma and I, we've worked in both documentaries and narrative formats, right? So, but what's so special about, you know, our working relationship with the different diverse production creatives, um, is that we've always in our film production, there's always a representation of the LGBTQ plus, you know, either a cinematographer, you know, a sound designer, a musical score, you know, it's always part of that, you know. And so we've always appreciated them. We've all because of the work they do, but also in terms of the joy they bring, you know, to every production. So we're not what do you call that? Um, we're not strangers to the LGBTQ plus community. We love the LGBTQ plus community. We've most of our uh, creatives in that community have remained friends with us for a long time. And so when we are now going to work with Sydney, it was so easy to develop a an honest and authentic relationship with Jay at the time, and also the other participants in the film. You know, so yeah, and so there was no, I think if there is a process that I started in learning about Sydney's stories, right? And the other participants' stories, um, it was just listening. I basically just listened. You know, sometimes I listened without recording or putting a camera on, you know. and I learned from that discussion. And so I also put myself, you know, as a student, not as a teacher of this information. No, I wanted to be a student, and I wanted to be affected personally by by the stories that I will uncover. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautifully put. And I did want to ask about a couple things you just brought up, the community in the film, the community of other trans women who are part of Sydney's community and help her on her journey by sharing their stories and just being friends. Clearly,
Yeah.
they're very close and have fun together. So yeah, I wanted to ask about, what it was like filming those moments and um, kind of shaping that part of the story, like her deep uh her deep relationships with this community of trans women who are also very open and vulnerable and sharing their experiences with her and with us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, um, I think like what I mentioned before, we come in as not as filmmakers. We come in as students, you know, and willing to learn and and grow, as human beings, not just as artists trying to record something. Or yeah, it was not that. Um, and in the process, I could sense in some with some of the participants a sense of what do you call this? Being careful, because, and we totally respect that. They want to remain private. They want to be private, and it's totally understandable, especially at this time, especially even before, so we respected that idea. And um but then the moment you break the ice, because it's so easy to break the ice with them, because they're so so beautiful human beings, so joyful, filled with stories, and of course filled with struggles, but always holding to a dream, always holding to dreams, always holding to friendships and relationships, and so to art and to community. And and because of that, it became easy, to build relationships, and also trust, so
Yeah. Um, I have to ask about the scene at the end with Sydney and her father because it's so moving. It's really, I really didn't know what to expect when I first saw it. I didn't know what way that could go. I think, the film is it was already so beautiful just being about, Sydney's journey, but then you see that scene and it's like the whole, everything in the film just kind of like the emotional climax of it is really, it kind of surprised me and it really moved me. Can you talk about just what it was like being there for that moment, and how you felt as a filmmaker, you know, approaching that?
yes. So I'll back up a little bit, before we get there. I want to say that from the moment we started uh, 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 doing a dialogue, with Sydney, it's always, most often than not, Sydney will always, with a sigh of with a heavy sigh, right? Always say that she hopes that she's done this, and she's told this to her family, especially the dad, because there, and she always kept telling us that she wanted to be with the dad, to confront the dad, to really know, things that she suffered growing up, and so um, that was I really absorbed that, and Emma absorbed that, everyone in the crew, we absorbed that. We put that in our writing, in our objective. That is something that we hope we can do. If it happens, it will be great. We had no idea how it's going to end. We have no idea, right? And so, um, right in the middle of filming, I think 2 years later, because it took about 8 years to make the film. I think 2 years in the making of the film, I think during the first year, Jay already tried to make contact with the dad, but for some reason it's not working. And then another year later, it's not working. And then later on, we found out her dad is actually in Bonn, Germany. So our producer Emma started looking for the hopefully to find an address in Bonn, Germany, right? So that was the idea. But then towards the I think in 2000, during the pandemic, there was a serious discussion between me and Sydney, and I really uh, um, asked Sydney, so are you really going to confront your dad? Are you really, is that part of your uh, goal, or you just want to be yourself, your true self, you know, and be okay with it and be free, right? And she said no, she wants to confront her dad. And I said, okay, so now if you confront your dad, you're okay with whatever their action, your dad, because you're not going to approach or see your dad. If we see your dad, you're not going to see your dad as Jay anymore. You're going to be Sydney. So you are okay with that, right? And Sydney said, yes. It's nerve-wracking. She's so scared to do that, but she's going to do that. And so, oh my God, that is really courageous, you know, knowing the history of her dad, knowing the experience she suffered, growing up with her dad. And so, yeah. So anyway, moving forward, we shot the dance sequence in Palawan because Sydney wanted to offer a dance, uh, um, uh, in Palawan, where she was born and raised, right near the ocean too. So yeah, and while we're doing that, even before we're doing that, our producer Emma was actually researching potential place where the dad would be, and we found out that her dad is no longer in Bonn, Germany, but the dad is now living in Bicol, the Bicol region in the Philippines. And so when we were there, we're preparing to hopefully go to Bicol, but we don't know her father's house. We had no idea. So Emma and her producing team, they searched, because Bicol is a big region in the Philippines, right? And so Emma said, Sydney's dad lives in the barrio, or in the region, this region of the diet in Bicol. And so hopefully, if we're given about a week, we will be able to search almost every single house. Yeah. And hopefully we'll find Sydney's dad. Right. But we have to make sure that Sydney would be with us. Right. And so that was the plan. Um, not knowing her dad's house, not knowing where in Daet, you know, and then we're bringing Sydney and we're bringing a crew with us, right? But we brought the crew all the way from Palawan because we filmed in Palawan. We went to Manila, and then Manila we traveled to Bicol, and it's a like a 16-hour drive, 16-hour drive, or maybe 14-hour drive during a storm at night. Yes, it was like a horror film. And Sydney was in the van. She was sleeping. She was tired. So we got to the hotel, and that's a funny story. When we got to the hotel, Emma booked a hotel at the I think it's at the opening of Daet, but the hotel is on a dead end street. So when we were traveling, it's like a horror film. You don't know where you're going, and there were no lights, and it's storming like crazy, right? Anyway, so we got to the hotel, and I we had a meeting, a gathering of creatives, and I told everyone, um, tomorrow we will start searching after breakfast. We will start looking for the house. So we will start looking, and hopefully our budget was only good for 4 days. Yeah, but we told our executive producers, in case we're not successful in 4 days, we will have to request more funding for additional 3 days, and hopefully that should suffice, because we will be able to do the region, right? And so yeah, that was the intention. So the following day, um, oh, by the way, our hotel, when we got to the hotel's kind of nice, but the door lock was outside. It's not inside the room. So we were all scared because we have a lot of equipments. We had a crew, we had you know, and and we just told everyone just to put the luggage to make sure you lock the door. Because the lock is outside. It's not inside. You couldn't lock the door. So that was scary, at night in a rainy nighttime. But the following day it was beautiful, it was sunny, it was nice, and we're ready to go. We're ready to go. And before breakfast, early on, you know, um, one of our gaffer, our lighting designer, um, June, went out to get a cigarette, walked around, looked for a small sari store. It's like a it's like a hole in the wall store to look for cigarettes. And while there, he asked if they know if they know uh, a certain um, what do you call that? Arthur Loyola. That's the dad. And they said no, we don't know, you know. And and then our gaffer insisted that he's actually the father of a daughter that is now looking for him, you know. And he goes, but we don't know Arthur Loyola. And he said, but he used to be the pilot, the captain of commercial ships abroad. And he said, that's Captain Art. That's Captain Art. And he goes,
Wow.
so you know him. He goes, yes. Do you know where he lives? Yes, the blue house at the end of the road, which is the house next to the hotel.
Wow.
Oh my, talk about amazing destiny. That's insane.
That's
That was
amazing.
that was insane. And so, but I had no idea if what do you call that? If the dad was there or anybody's there, or really that's Sydney's dad. So we had to verify. So I asked our drone op and also our AC and our DP to kind of take a photo, if there's a person moving around in that house, to see. take a photo clear enough so that we can show it to Sydney. Sydney was in her room, so nervous at the time, you know, and then so we went. I went with my DP and first AC, and I said, if you see movement in the house or in the yard, take a photo, a phone photo, and if the drone sees anything, take a photo, and then we'll give it to Sydney. We did, and we showed it to Sydney, and Sydney goes, "Oh my God, that's my dad." Yeah, yeah. And from that point on, Sydney was so nervous. Sydney was so nervous, and so now we had to design the shoot because I cannot go there and ask for a release form and say, Sydney's no, I wanted to film it in the in the rawest, the most raw, form, in the most authentic, you know, and I told the DP to search for a vantage point where we can see movement, but at the same time for them not to be seen, and also my second unit to look for a vantage point on the ground. So they did. They placed the camera in the van. We have dark windows in the van, and you couldn't see the camera. So we positioned that at a vantage point, and we positioned another camera on the top of the hotel. But our vantage point is very restricted. We couldn't really pan to the right, you know, the house of the dad, because we will only see trees and walls. So our vantage point is basically between two trees. And so I told Sydney, as a dancer, I trust Sydney, of course. I told Sydney that if you walk in to the yard, don't go and meet your dad in the house. Let him come to you. And your vantage point are the two coconut trees. So if you see the coconut tree and you stay at the center and you're right in the center of those trees, we can see you. We can see you. And whoever is going to approach you, we can see. The second thing I reminded everyone, the crew, our PA, our AC, our editor on the ground, even Emma, we reminded everyone that if Sydney is approached with violence, or a very unwelcoming gesture, or a push or a shove, then we will run and take Sydney away. But we will continue to film because that will be the state of where we're at when um, even the slightest of hope, left us. Yeah. And so, yeah. And then I reminded Sydney that 8 years ago, when we talked and we learned about the struggles, this is now the moment to confront your dad. Yeah. Sorry. I was uh I was brought back to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
So it's a really incredible moment, and knowing that you put so much care, everyone involved,
Yeah.
including Sydney, and her father without really realizing it, but the whole
Yeah.
crew too. I mean, it's all this like invisible work that we don't see as viewers of the film, and it's really incredible to hear about everything that went into that, to capture a really true, honest, beautiful moment. So the fact that you could, track him down and provide that, is it's amazing. So
Oh,
thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing all of that.
Thank you. And then, so the moment that dad, I was on the PA, I was on and everyone's on the PA, and I was really, my heart was pumping. I had no idea what's going to happen. And when the dad hugged Sydney, everyone cried. I was crying. Everyone's crying.
Mm.
And then, I told everyone, don't stop filming, and don't move in. Don't show yourselves to the dad.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in. I'm going to build a relationship with the dad to allow us to sit down and to have Sydney, not confront, but to have a dialogue.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was a moment of truth for us. And so I went and immediately I hugged the dad. And I said, thank you. And he had no idea who I was. And I go, and you are? Like, who is this guy hugging me? Like, oh, and then I told him, oh, I'm a friend of Sydney, and we've been looking for you for a long time. And
Mm.
and if it's okay with you, I think I put my arm around him, you know, and I was so happy. I had no idea that I was so happy. And I said, if it's okay with you, Sydney would love to have a dialogue with you. And I happen to be a filmmaker, and I have a camera that I'm bringing, and blah blah blah. And he said, yes, yeah, that's okay. But do I need to change my clothes? And I said, no, you look good. And so he started walking me around the house, the yard.
Hmm.
That's when I told Emma, and Emma told everyone to set up, to
Hmm.
bring everything. And
Yeah.
then when he went in the house to start changing, that's when we decide where they're going to sit down, you
Mm.
know? Yeah. But at the time, even that moment, Sydney, even after the hug, Sydney was still nervous.
Yeah.
Sydney was still, yeah, so yeah. And we were waiting. The dad couldn't see us. It was just our director of photography and our second unit camera and AC. And we were in a video village, you know, and
Mhm.
we're looking, and I'm listening. I'm listening at the heartbeat of both Sydney and the dad. I had
Mm.
no idea where this will take us,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, everyone who watches it will know exactly that feeling, because you captured it, in so beautifully in the film. So, um, yeah, that's so beautiful, and such a wonderful note to end on, because I think we're a little bit out of time. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to give you a moment if you want to just, if there's anything you want to share, just you know, what you hope audiences take away from seeing The Road to Sydney.
Mm. Um, it's it's always a privilege for us filmmakers to be able to share the stories that we went on an adventure to explore and to capture and to learn from as artists and as human beings. And so with love, and it's always an honor for us when a film festival and diverse cineasts and cinephiles, will welcome the film so that they too will learn and maybe engage in a meaningful dialogue with us if we are present, right? And maybe find real, relationships, in the film. Um, we hope that after watching the film, all of us will become better humans for each other, you know, um, regardless of everything, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. where you've been, your religion, whatever. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Benito Bautista. And thank you all, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.